So here we are again. I have my specs on. Last paragraph from last week, last couple of sentences from the last paragraph. He remembered dimly the sermons he had heard about the beauty of self-immolation, about the virtue of sacrificing to others that which was one's dearest. He knew nothing about the philosophy of ethics. But he knew suddenly, not in words, but in the form of a dark, angry, savage pain, that this was virtue. That if this was virtue, then he wanted no part of it. He walked into the roadhouse and ordered a large, ancient, coal-burning locomotive to be made ready for the run to Winston. The trainmaster reached for the telephone in the dispatcher's office to summon the engine crew as ordered, but his hand stopped, holding the receiver. It struck him suddenly that he was summoning men to their death, and that the 20 lives listed on the sheet before him, 2 would be ended by his choice. He felt physical sensation of cold, nothing more. He felt no concern, only a puzzled, indifferent astonishment. It had never been his job to call men out to die. His job had been to call them out to earn their living. It was strange, he thought, and it was strange that his hand had stopped. What made it stop was like something he would have felt 20 years ago. No, he thought, strange, only 1 month ago, not longer. He was 48 years old. He had no family, no friends, no ties to any living being in the world. Whatever capacity for devotion he had possessed, the capacity which others scatter among the many random concerns, he had driven it whole to the person of his young brother, the brother, his junior by 25 years, whom he had brought up. He had sent him through a technological college, and he had known, as had all the teachers, that the boy had the mark of a genius on the forehead of his grim young face. With the same single-track devotion of his brothers, the boy had cared for nothing but his studies, not for sports, or parties, or girls, only for the vision of the things he was going to create as an inventor. He had graduated from college and had gone, on a salary unusual for his age, into the research laboratory of a great electrical concern in Massachusetts. This was now May 28, thought the trainmaster. It was on May 1 that Directive 10-289 had been issued. It was on the evening of May 1 that he had been informed that his brother had committed suicide. The trainmaster had heard it said that the directive was necessary to save the country. He could not know whether this was true or not. He had no way of knowing what was necessary to save a country. But driven by some feeling which he could not express, he had walked into the office of the editor of the local newspaper and demanded that they publish the story of his brother's death. People have to know it, had been all he could give as his reason. He had been unable to explain that the bruised connections of his mind had formed the wordless conclusion that if this was done by the will of the people, then the people had to know it. He could not believe that they would do it if they knew. The editor had refused. He had stated that it would be bad for the country's morale. The trainmaster knew nothing about the political philosophy, but he knew that that had been the moment when he lost all concern for the life or death of any human being or of the country. He thought, holding the telephone receiver, that maybe he should warn the men whom he was about to call. They trusted him. It would never occur to them that he could knowingly send them to their death. But he shook his head. This was only an old thought, last year's thought, a remnant of the time when he had trusted them too. It did not matter now. His brain worked slowly, as if he were dragging his thoughts through a vacuum where no emotion responded to spur them on. He thought that there would be trouble if he warned anyone. There would be some sort of fight, and it would be he who had to make some great effort to start it. He had forgotten what it was that one started this sort of fight for. Truth, justice, brother love. He did not want to make an effort. He was very tired. If he warned all the men on his list, he thought, there would be no one to run the engine, so he would have to save 2 lives and also 300 lives aboard the comet. But nothing responded to the figures in his head. Lives was just a word. It had no meaning. He raised the telephone receiver to his ear. He called 2 numbers. He summoned an engineer and had a fireman to report for duty at once. Engine number 306 had left for Winston when Dave Mitchum came downstairs. Get a track motor car ready for Get a track motor car ready for me, he ordered. I'm going to run up to Fairmount. Fairmount was a small station 20 miles east on the line. The men nodded, asking no questions. Bill Brent was not among them. Mitchum walked into the Brent's office, and Brent was there, sitting silently at his desk. He seemed to be waiting. I'm going to Fairmount, said Mitchum. His voice was aggressively too casual, as if implying that no answer was necessary. They had a diesel there a couple of weeks ago, you know? Emergency repairs or something. I'm going down to see if we could use it. He paused, but Brent said nothing. The way things stack up, said Mitchum, not looking at him, we can't hold that train till morning. We've got to take a chance. One way or another, now I think maybe this diesel will do it. But that's the last one we can try for. So if you don't hear from me in half an hour, sign the order and send the Comet through with the number 306 to pull her. Whatever Brent had thought, he could not believe when he heard it. He did not answer at once. Then he said very quietly, no. What do you mean, no? I won't do it. What do you mean you won't? It's an order. I won't do it. Brent's voice had the firmness of certainty unclouded by any emotion. Are you refusing to obey an order? I am. But you have no right to refuse. And if I'm going to argue about it, either it's what I've decided. It's my responsibility, and I'm not asking your opinion. Your job is to take my orders. Will you give me that order in writing? Why, God damn you, are you hinting that you don't trust me? Are you? Why do you have to go to Fairmount, Dave? Why can't you telephone them about the diesel? If you think that they have one. You're not going to tell me how to do my job. You're not going to sit there and question me. You're going to keep your trap shut and do as you're told, or I'll give you a chance to talk to the Unification Board. It was hard to decipher emotions on Brent's cowboy face, but Mitchum saw something that resembled a look of incredulous horror. Only it was horror that at some sight of his own. Not at the words, and it had the quality of fear, not the kind of fear Mitchum had hoped for. Brent knew that tomorrow morning the issue would be his word against Mitchum's. Mitchum would deny having given the order. Mitchum would show written proof that engine number 306 had been sent to Winston only to stand by, and would produce witnesses that had gone to Fairmount in search of a diesel. Mitchum would claim that the fatal order had been issued by and on the sole responsibility of Bill Brent, the chief dispatcher. It would not be much of a case, not a case that would bear close study, but it would be enough for the Unification Board, whose policy was consistent only in not permitting anything to be studied closely. Brent knew that he could play the same game and pass the frame up on another victim. He knew that he had the brains to work it out, except that he would rather be dead than do it. And with that, I'll end this evening's reading. Thank you for tuning in. We'll pick it up next week, Sunday evening. Maybe we can finish up by then. Have a good evening, folks. It's a new week. Let's do our best. Let's give the best within us. Peter Piper, the True Light, saying, speak the truth and seek enlightenment. God bless, folks, and good night.